come, why have you come? Lift me higher, let me look at the sun, look at the sun. And once I hear them clearly say, who are you really? And where are you going? Well, I got nothing left to prove, 'cause I got nothing left to lose. See me bare my teeth for you. We are the fire, we see how they run, see how they run. Lift me higher, let me look at the sun, look at the sun. At once I hear them clearly say, who are you really? And where are you going? Well, I got nothing left to prove, 'cause I got nothing left to lose. See me bare my teeth for you, see me bare my teeth.
Got a long way down, a long way down, a long way down with a heart so proud. Apple in the barrel, got it all done spoiled. All that's good for now is the soil. Got a neck so strong for the crown upon your head. Don't think anyone will leave it when you're dead. There's a throng of men mightier than you, and they're waiting and they're watching till they fill your shoes.
Oh, Polly, dear Polly, come go along with me. Polly, pretty Polly, come go along with me. Before we get married, some pleasures to see.
Willie, oh Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. Willie, oh Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. I'm afraid you will lead my poor body astray. farther, and what did she spy? Went a few steps farther, what did she spy? But a new dug grave and a spade lying by.
He stabbed her in her heart, and her heart's blood did flow. He stabbed her in her heart, and her heart's blood did flow. And into the grave, pretty Polly did go. Oh, gentlemen and ladies, I bid you farewell. Gentlemen and ladies, I bid you farewell. For killing pretty Polly, my soul will go to hell.
It's a debt to the devil.
Oh, really must pay. It's a debt to the devil. Oh, really must pay for killing pretty Polly and running away.
Fall through the trees and you pray with your knees on the ground for the things that you need, with your lust and your greed weighing down. And you're weak in your love and you hold it above your head. Success is a song of the heart, not a song of your bed. And we all still die. Are we all still die? What will you leave behind? Are we all still die? Your lust and your greed weighing down, and you're weak in your love and you hold it above your head. Success is a song of the heart, not a song of your breath. And we all still die. Are we all still die? What will you leave behind? Are we all still die?
marching away from this tree. This tree, it will die without leaves. This tree, it will die. This tree, it will die. And we all still die. Oh, we all still die. What will you leave behind? Oh, we all still die. And we all still die. And we all still die. What will you leave behind? And we all still die.
On the brink of madness, reason left my weary soul. I keep walking on, but I feel alone. And no one knows the darkness till you meet him in the day. He'll steal your light and run away, singing, oh. Farewell. Seasons rise and fall while I am seeking you. The valley of despair grows deeper still. I hear your voice within a dream and wake to find the darkness still imprisons me, singing, oh.
Oh, my heart had been leaking since the day that I first laid eyes upon you. I knew you were the one. Since that day, I had never been the same. No one ever could turn me away. Our love had just begun. Oh, we let you open up your heart to me.
cupboard for your daddy's gun.
Red sun rises like an early warning.
The Lord's gonna come for your firstborn son.
His hair's on fire and his heart is burning.
So go to the river where the water runs.
Wash him deep where the tides are turning.
And if you fall, and if you fall, hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. The wolves will chase you by the pale moonlight.
Drunk and driven by a devil's hunger.
Drive your son like a railroad spike
Into the water, let it pull him under.
But though you lift him, let him drown alive.
The good Lord speaks like a rolling thunder.
Let that fever make the water rise.
Let the river run dry.
Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way, a long, long, long way. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. Hold my hand. Hold my hand. Hold my hand. Long way down to the bottom. Hold my hand. It's a long way down, long way down. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way. Come on now. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. I see a ghost out on the water. I swear it has my face. I bend and drink the lonely down, the lonely down. There's trouble on the river and whispers in the trees. I can feel it all around, all around. I'm gonna stand, I'm gonna stand here in the ache until the levee, until the levee on my heart breaks. I'm gonna wade out past the shallows and brave the bitter taste. Gonna drink the lonely down, the lonely down. Let the current take me over, let the ruin turn to wine. I can feel it all around, all around. I'm gonna stand, I'm gonna stand here in the ache until the levee, until the levee of my heart breaks. I'm gonna stand, I'm gonna stand here in the ache, the ache, the ache. So gonna let it break. Take all I can take.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Marshstream, your public performance broadcast platform. My name is Brianna Caver, assistant producer for Marshstream, and we are back again tonight for Solo Arts Heal ANCAN edition, the first ANCAN of the year. Although our theater doors are now back open, there are still some folks unable to attend these live performances, so these free streaming performances are brought to you by patrons, just like yourself, all who donate to our tip jar. The link is posted in the chat and is also available on our website at themarsh.org. Remember, all donations are tax deductible and 100% matched. We need you now more than ever so we can continue to bring these free streaming performances to our community. If you're watching us live on YouTube, welcome and thank you for joining us. Please make sure you subscribe to be notified when we go live and watch the hours of free performances, interviews, and events we have archived all right there on our channel. This week at the Marsh, we have our Sketch Fest with a lineup of a variety of shows. Thursday at the Marsh San Francisco is Aaron Chen at 7 p.m. and Chris Turner's Vegas Baby at 9:30 p.m. In the SF studio, we have A Taste of Sketchfest at 7:15 and again at 9:45 p.m. Friday at the Marsh San Francisco is Knees Up with Chris Turner at 7 p.m. and the Chonga Girls at 9:30 p.m. In the studio, we have A Taste of Sketchfest at 7:15 p.m. and again at 9:45 p.m. Saturday at the Marsh Berkeley is Marga Gomez's Swimming with Lesbians at 5 p.m. And at the Marsh San Francisco, we have Too Far with Rachel Cayley and Robbie Hoffman at 7 p.m. Then Brittany Carney's Kingdom Phylum Ass, followed by Rachel Cayley's Hospital Hour at 9:30 p.m. And in the SF studio, we have A Taste of Sketchfest at 7:15 p.m. and again at 9:45 p.m. And finally, on Sunday at the Marsh Berkeley, we have Marga Gomez's Swimming with Lesbians at 5 p.m. At the SF main stage is Teeny Tiny with Joey Greer at 5 p.m. and our solo spotlight, Chris Smith's Acting in a Time Such as This, followed by Man of the Year at 7:30 p.m. And once again, we have A Taste of Sketchfest at 7 p.m. and again at 9:45 p.m. in the SF studio. With such a variety of great performances, please make sure you come see them. Again, please donate to our tip jar. Thank you for joining us. And now let's welcome your host, Alexa Jett.
Thank you, Brianna. We are so glad to be back. Hi there, my name is Alexa Jett with the ANCAN Foundation. I'm filling in for Rick Davis, who actually happens to be in the Bay Area, so shout out to all you fantastic people. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. I'm sure you've heard of the Chicago Bears, but did you know there's another type of bear in Chicago? Not exactly like this bear, but instead an incredible person and an amazing performer. She is a storyteller. She is an author of a fantastic book that features bears, raccoons, and deer as well. She hails from the Ozark region of the United States, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. Ursa Miles, everyone.
Hello!
Hi, Ursa. It's so fantastic that you are with us for the very first ANCAN edition of Solo Arts Heal for 2024. We couldn't have picked a better guest. As I mentioned in your intro, you are from the Ozarks, and you come from a culture. I'm from East Texas, so I understand what it's like to come from a culture where it's super unique. And I know for myself, I know to avoid the rougarou, and I know to not make the swamp upset. So I know in a little bit of your storytelling and in your writing, you touch on things like that. So I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit of what it was like to grow up in the Ozarks.
Yeah, so I was immensely privileged to attend Amanda Gist Elementary School when I was little. And Amanda Gist Elementary School is very special. It's an elementary school in Cotter, Arkansas, trout capital of the USA. It's one of the very few elementary schools that had a resident storyteller for most of the years I was in attendance. The principal's aunt was Marian Messick, the author and storyteller who lived nearby. And so I got to spend most of my childhood years literally sitting at the feet of a well-practiced storyteller who would just immerse us in all of the history of the place where we grew up.
That's fantastic. So you come from a strong background of storytelling and you great pedigree. And I know one of the great things about stories is it connects cultures, it connects generations, and kind of the Ozarks in East Texas, Cajun country has a very similar thread with that of the kind of the educational aspect of telling these stories that sort of kind of like your book, which we're going to touch on later. But so you've had storytelling in your background for a long time. And one of the things you're going to be talking about tonight, which is sort of what we do on our show, is you've had several health challenges. You've had issues with your heart, and you also were really young. So I would like you to touch on that a little bit. And one of the things I want to know is, did storytelling help you with that?
Yeah, so I started having heart problems very early in life. The story I'm going to tell later picks up around age 12, but really symptoms started around the second grade. Um, and I think storytelling and growing up in a very storied environment was helpful in that it gave me structures and frameworks to make sense of things that were going on. Like, yes, I had 12 panic attacks this month because of all the heart issues I was having, and those were compounding. But if I broke it down into like these small things were my triggers that led to this, they became more bite-sized issues that I could tackle one at a time.
I see. So since you were so young and you probably lived rurally since most of the Ozarks is rural, were you the youngest person in the waiting room when you saw the cardiologist? Did you have a lot of people tell you that you were too young? Do you feel like, kind of just tell me how it felt to be so young? Because when we think of heart problems, unfortunately, there's kind of this stigma and belief that it's only for people 65 and up, and that's just not true at all.
Yeah, so what's really unique about Arkansas, at least in the time when I was growing up there, is that actually as a child, I could not see a cardiologist unless I went to Little Rock by law.
Wow.
In order to see a cardiologist, you had to see a pediatric
Hmm.
cardiologist. And there was only one children's hospital in Arkansas at the time. Now there are two. There's a new one in Northwest Arkansas, is my understanding. But when I was really little, I didn't even have a chance to go see one. I was on what's called ARKIDS, which is the Arkansas like state insurance for
Hmm.
children. And the list of doctors you can see was very thin.
And unfortunately, those barriers still exist today where I live, where you live. So many people do not
Mhm.
have access to specialists. And, you know, I think that's one of the challenges that you have to overcome when you come from a more rural area. And do you think that storytelling is a way for you to have a voice? Especially in chronic illness, where chronic illness, we talk about this a lot at ANCAN, takes away a lot of choices for you. Do you feel like
Mhm.
being able to have your own voice and your own story is taking the power back?
Absolutely, especially because doctors are not primed to listen to
Hmm.
young people quite as much, and because young people are not as trained in the art of storytelling and making a case through narrative. Learning that skill is what advances us to being taken as an adult, to being treated as an adult. When you can weave your narrative in such a way that you can state your case and you can say, here are the things that have happened to me. Here's how I know they're not okay. Here's how I know I need your help. When you can start to structure things like that, that's when doctors sometimes start to listen.
Yeah, and at ANCAN, our tagline, it's even on my shirt, is be your own best advocate. And
Mhm.
storytelling, if you do political lobbying for healthcare, if you do any type of patient advocacy, you need to be a good storyteller. You need to have your elevator pitch and you need to be a good storyteller. So I know we have teased people and we're so excited. Can you set up The Water's Daughter for us? Can you tell us a little bit about it? And then we would love to hear it.
Yes, so The Water's Daughter is the story of my journey to diagnosis, but also the story of my separation from the land and the culture that built me because of my heart condition.
Wonderful. You have the floor, Ursa.
The Ozarks was built millions and millions of years ago when North America and South America collided And the tension of that collision forced the earth to swell with the promise of a new terrain. And the water and the wind carved at that uplift, and they created the most beautiful bluffs and hills and mountains. And that water, as it carved at that uplift, it flowed down those hills into the rivers and the creeks and the ravines. And those rivers, they were wild. They were untamed. They were sometimes violent. And when the rain would come down hard, the rivers would swell and they would fill those valleys and they would rush into the marshes below. And as those marshes swelled, they would claim the lives of any who lived there. And so in the 1930s, the Army Corps of Engineers built massive dams. And those dams tamed the rivers and built sprawling lakes. And those lakes, to Ozarkers, well, they became our lifeblood. They became our economy. Those lakes became our religion. When I was just 3 months old, my family threw me into the lake to see if I would float. Luckily, I did. When I was 3 years old, I won my first fishing tournament. And when I was 4 years old, my birth father lit a lighter and pressed it to my skin to see how loud I would scream for the first time. On that day, I vowed that the only father I would ever have would be the water. And every summer, I went for my visitation. And I would spend every moment possible with my real father under the water. And I learned his ways, and I learned his language. Did you know? Water has language. It is the most beautiful language. It is the language of movement. You see, when you are underwater and you close your eyes and you let yourself be taken by the water, you can feel absolutely everything. Every time a boat passes through the lake, every fish that flips its fin sends a ripple of movement and sound that pulses through your body. And if you learn, you can speak with it and move with it. And under that water, I learned the most beautiful, beautiful stories until the summer of the flood. You see, one summer, the floods had caused the lakes to rise far higher than they had in a long time. And that gave me the opportunity for one of my favorite pastimes. You see, what I would do when it would flood is I would swim out to where I knew there was a wooden fence. And I would swim down and I would grab onto the fence post. I'd pull myself underneath and I would pin myself underneath the wood. And there, when I was secured, as long as I held my breath or if I took a tube down with me, I could just look up at the sunlight and watch as the fish swam over top of me. So on this summer, I was under my fence. And I was watching this bass and this carp do what bass and carp do, which is just unpredictable madness. And I was laughing and giggling and loving my time in the water when it felt like a car had hit me in the chest. I started to panic. I pushed myself off of the fence and I floated up to the surface and I started gasping for air. And at first, my mother laughed because she thought I was kidding. Children do things like that. They fake drowning. Then she realized I wasn't. As I slowly started to crawl my way up to the bank, hand over hand, knee over knee, and I collapsed there on the bank. Now, I am very fortunate that my mother is a nurse, and she usually knows what to do in extreme circumstances, and she usually has the necessary equipment. So she went back to the car, and she came back with a stethoscope and a timer, and she pressed the stethoscope to my heart. And according to her calculations, my heart was beating 222 beats per minute. But when she pressed her fingers to my wrist to check my pulse, for some reason she could only feel 85 beats. Now, that's not how the human body works. Pulse and heart rate should line up. That is normal operation. And I should have gone to a hospital. But at the time, we were 3 hours away from the nearest hospital. And so my family carried me back to the camper and packed ice around me, and we waited. It took 4 hours for my heart to reach a normal rhythm. And that day, as we pulled away from the campground, I waved goodbye to my father for a very, very, very long time. And thus began my journey back home. Now, here's the thing about being a young heart patient. Your age walks into the room before you do, and doctors do not often take you seriously. I went through a string of doctors. Doctor number 1, who I kindly refer to as the quack, informed me that there was no way I could have a heart condition. Instead, the solution to all of my problems was to eat better, specifically to go on the Atkins diet, buying a book that he most definitely did not have stock in. I tried that for a good year, and then I decided that cheesecake was more important. But I got sick again, and it got harder and harder to go to school and to do the things I loved. And so I went to doctor number 2. Finally, a real cardiologist. But in Arkansas, if you want to see a real cardiologist and you're under the age of 18, or at least this was the case, you had to go all the way to Little Rock, 4 hours away from where I lived. It took months to be able to get in. And when we finally got there, the doctor I got set me down and very patronizingly told me that a lot of my heart problems were caused by my mitral valve. And then he proceeded to tell me that a mitral valve is a valve that is like a flappy thingy, and continued to move his hands like this the entire consultation. He said the solution to all of my problems, and to most young people's problems, was to urinate more. And so disheartened, we drove away, and I waited until I was 18 to seek the help of another doctor. And so came doctor number 3. We will call him Dr. B. Dr. B also believed that young people did not have heart conditions. He told me that elevated heart rates were normal for people of my age, especially for those who are active. And one day, when I was listening to his diatribe for the 5th time, for the first time in my life, I did what can only be described as I snapped. I straight up snapped, and I yelled at him, "Watching Gilmore Girls is not exercise." And he finally listened. I'm just kidding, no. But in order to placate me, he did offer to do an EP study, an electrophysiology study. Now, if you've never been through an EP study, you may not know what those are, and that's fine and for the best. An EP study is a type of procedure where doctors put incisions either in your groin or your wrist, and they send a whole bunch of electrical equipment up into your heart, through your arteries, through your veins, and they start poking around. And you're awake the whole time. You're watching it on this big screen above you, and they pump you full of adrenaline to the point where you're shaking, and they try to find the damaged nerves. And then they sedate you a little, but only minimally. You're still awake the entire time, watching on this screen. And they try again to find these nerves. And it goes on for hours and hours. And in an ideal situation, they find the nerves and they electrocute them and they kill them, and you are cured. But Dr. B was not taking me seriously. And I know he wasn't taking me seriously because while he was supposed to be performing the EP study, he was dancing around the room, singing into a scalpel Shania Twain's "I Feel Like a Woman." And he was not on key. So he patched me up, handed me a bottle of beta blockers, and sent me off to college. Now, beta blockers are a beautiful, beautiful thing for people who have high blood pressure. They are absolute hell for some people with low blood pressure. I gained 30 pounds in 2 months. And the weight loss was so rapid that it caused my skin to stretch and tear. I still have the stretch marks to this day. And I could barely sleep. And when I was awake, I was barely awake. Half the time, I could barely breathe. And one night, I was sleeping in my dorm in a bunk bed below my roommate, and I woke up to an awful earthquake. The world was shaking violently. Now, Arkansas has been dealing with a lot of issues involving fracking for years, and we've all been waiting for the day when the New Madrid would go off and send the Mississippi River running backwards again. So I jumped up screaming and running for the door. And my roommate said, "Why are you screaming?" And I turned back and I said, "Because there's an earthquake. We need to get out." And she said, "And Ursa, there is no earthquake." And that's when I realized that it was me who was shaking. My heart was struggling to beat it all. Now, you are not supposed to quit beta blockers cold turkey, but I flushed mine down the toilet that night. And honestly, I was a little bit glad because I really, really missed eating grapefruit. And it was great to have it again. But my health continued to deteriorate. I started having to see my university's nurse once a week to check my blood pressure, and it regularly set at 60/40, which I am now told by my doctors constitutes a walking coma. I started losing my eyesight. I started losing my hearing. And when you watch television, you think that losing your hearing means just that you stop hearing or that you hear less, but actually for a while, losing your hearing means hearing more. You develop this thing called auditory hypervigilance, where you hear every sound at the same intensity all the time. If the neighbor 2 houses over was doing laundry, I could hear it. If someone was charging their cell phone, I could hear it. In my classes, I would start to claw at my ears trying to take a test because the sounds were so frustrating. And my grades went from almost straight A's to D's and F's. And one day, one of my professors pulled me aside and she said, "Ursa, listen, I think you need to seek help. Have you ever been tested for autism?" And I said, "Well, no, because I've only felt like this for a little while. And you can't develop autism." And it's true, you cannot. But it's also true that if you start showing signs of neurological differences late in life that you didn't already have, you need to seek help. But I didn't know where to go, so I went to the only place I could go, the University Disability Services. And I walked in and I said, "I am losing my hearing and I am losing my eyesight and I am losing my mind. I don't know what to do." And they said, "We don't either. But since you're losing your hearing, go to the audiology clinic and see what they can do." I was very fortunate to go to a college with a huge speech language pathology program. And the chair of audiology sat down with me for hour-long meetings, weeks on end, to try and get to the bottom of what was going on. And then finally, during one of our meetings, I let slip that I had been having my blood pressure checked every week. And he said, "Well, what are your numbers?" And I said, "Well, they're 60/40. And he said, "Oh my God, your brain is dying. You need help now." And then he said the most comforting thing anyone had ever said to me. He said, "I know an electrophysiologist who specializes in young people. I'm going to make a phone call. I can get you in next week." Flash forward 3 months later, I was on a table at St. Vincent's Hospital in Little Rock. with a doctor who didn't sing Shania Twain off key, with a doctor who let me choose my own music. I chose 80s glam and it was glorious. And I sat on the table for 8 hours as I was pumped full of adrenaline and electrocuted over and over again in a quintuple ablation. 5 damaged nerves found, 5 damaged nerves fried to heck until they died. And when I came out of the operation, if you can even call it that, it's more of a procedure, I felt like an elephant had stepped off my chest. And you know, if you have gone 7 years without adequate oxygen in your brain and then somebody repairs your heart, oxygen can get you high as a kite. I walked around for weeks mesmerized by squirrels. Do you know how beautiful squirrels are? Recovery wasn't all squirrels and happiness, though. I couldn't walk upstairs. I couldn't lift much of anything because of the incisions in my veins. If I walked upstairs, there was a chance that those could split open and I could bleed to death. But finally, when everything healed, the producer of the theater I was working for at the time invited me over. He had a pool in his backyard. And on that day, I slowly slipped into the water. And I finally got to say hello to my father again. Thank you.
Wow, Ursa, that was fantastic. As someone who is a young adult cancer survivor, your experience is like so many. And, you know, in my personal experience, it took 5 years for me to be diagnosed with cancer. And it was because I was told I was too young. Young people don't get cancer. It's an older person's problem. It was so comforting to finally find out what was wrong with me. And in my case, my cancer is actually stealing blood from my brain. So whenever you were talking about, you know, just how oxygen can get you high again whenever you haven't had it, I really felt that. Man, it's so sad to me that it seems like when you're a young person, you really have to fight so hard to get a diagnosis. And something that I feel a lot of people may not understand is it's really good to have a diagnosis. It can be a huge source of comfort and knowledge, and especially if you find out that you can do something about it. Was that your experience?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think when you don't know the answer, your mind comes up with the worst possible answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people talk enough about how terrifying it is for children to go to sleep at night not knowing if they will wake up. And I think most young children who deal with major chronic issues, until they get the diagnosis and they get the confirmation that you are not dying, they're thinking worst case scenario. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
sleep wondering if they'll ever see anyone again. And that doesn't make you want to sleep.
Right. And that's why it's so important that we give education in age appropriate ways. And oh my gosh, I would have walked out hearing that Shania Twain song just off key. Ugh, poor Shania. She didn't deserve that. That was just such a great story, and it just encompasses what so many young adults go through. The diagnosis may be different, the details might be different, but thank you for shining a light on that. I just, it was fantastic. You have another story that you're going to tell us, and I'm really excited. I was so enthralled that I kind of almost just want to throw it to the other story so I can keep listening, but I'd like you to set it up for us.
Yes. So this story actually takes place in the middle of the story you just heard. And it's a bit of a darker look. It looks at some of the darker lessons we can learn through our sicknesses about the rest of the world.
My gosh, I'm on the edge of my seat. One of the things that I loved also about that story is how the water, it connects your community. It
Yeah.
connects throughout several times in your story of you at 3 months old, then to you right after your diagnosis. I just wanted to point that out. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful. I love that. Also in my community, I understand in yours, it's the water stream and the dams, and that's it's the railroad. So it's like, oh
Mhm.
wow, it's a lived experience when you live in a small community and these things are just lifelines. So
Yeah.
I would love for you to go ahead and tell us your second story, and we'll chat about it right after.
All right. I went to a small liberal arts Christian college. If you don't know what they are, they're just a special kind of college that is private, has special rules, is exempt from certain laws. Mine, we're going to call, for the sake of this story, Warren G. And for many, Warren G was a dark and awful place. You see, at Warren G, it is against the rules to be trans. If you ask to be put in a dorm that aligns with your gender, you can be asked to leave the university completely. At Warren G, it is against the rules to be gay. And if you have a partner of the same sex, you can be asked to leave or possibly to seek reparative therapy that no longer exists. At Warren G, you will be socially rejected if you are poor. You will sit through service on service telling you that you need to go on mission trips around the world that cost thousands of dollars, and that if you don't, you are failing as a Christian. But also at Warren G, a lot of people felt loved and connected. And when I first went there, God, I was one of those people. Because one of the things that makes me feel connected to other people is singing. And Warren G's unofficial motto was, here at Warren G, we sing. See, every morning, we had mandatory chapel. And the entire college, all 6, 7, 8,000 of us, I don't know, we all gathered in one room and we sang in beautiful a cappella harmony, and you could feel the vibrations in your chest. You could feel everyone moving together. It was lovely. On Wednesdays, we had Bible studies where people got together and they sang. We had choirs all over the place, impromptu singing groups. And it was beautiful. And there, I was one of the privileged few who could fly under the radar. See, I am a cis woman and I present mostly feminine. I dress in dresses. I love wearing heels. I'm also demisexual. So if I have the ability to be attracted to someone of the same sex, I'm not aware of it yet. It's rare for me to be attracted to much of anybody. This is something they could accept. And I was very good at pretending not to be poor. I learned how to stretch a little bit of money a long way to blend in with all the people of the upper middle class. There was a store near the university that had little, like they had all the clothing you could need to look fancy, to look nice, but they only charged 50 cents per item. So I would scrounge together quarters that people dropped behind vending machines, and I would go there to shop, and I worked together a pretty decent middle class wardrobe. I learned how to sit properly while I ate. I even attended banquets and galas, and I ate with the right fork and the right spoon. I was able to blend in extremely well until I quit my heart medication. You see, one day, after a particularly scary incident caused by my medication, I had to quit cold turkey. But quitting cold turkey didn't mean that any of my conditions were gone. It just meant that I had to learn to approach them differently. But because I had been medicated before anyone figured out exactly how I worked, I was left to figure out my own body. And so I started tracking everything. Every time my heart went off, I looked through journals on journals and charts on charts. What had I done that day that had set it off? And my goodness, I ruled out a lot. A lot. I ruled out foods. I ruled out not sleeping enough. I ruled out sleeping too much. I ruled out people and places and flowers and plants, anything that could trigger any bodily reaction. The only common thread that was present every day that I had a PSVT attack was singing. And when I realized that, I called my doctors and I said, here's what I've noticed. Here's what's setting me off. And they said, yeah, that sounds about right. And I said, what do I do? And they said, stop singing. And so the summer after that happened, I dropped out of the music program at my college. And I emailed all my professors to say that I could no longer sing. And I went about my summer as best I could. And eventually I thought I had adjusted to the idea, and I was so ready when school started back in the fall to get back to see my friends, to get back to college, to thinking complex thoughts and working through wonderful artistic pieces. And on that very first day, I went to mandatory chapel. And there were people there singing our alma mater. Near the foothills of the Ozarks, midst of hill and plain, stands our glorious alma mater. Warrengy is her name. Sing the chorus, shout it loudly, echoing through the vale. Hail, beloved college, alma mater, hail. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't allowed to sing along. And then the speaker for that day's chapel got up on stage. And his sermon, was about singing and how the Bible calls all Christians to sing with their heart and with their minds and with their mouths and to make a joyful noise. And he proceeded to tell the entire chapel that failing to sing out in chapel was a sin. And then he began to lead them in another song. And I looked to my left and I looked to my right. God, I felt alone until I noticed over in section 100, a friend who was gay and hiding. And in section 300, a friend who was trans and was hiding. And in section 500, friends who were poor, whose parents were homeless, who couldn't let anyone know. And I realized that while I was alone, I wasn't alone in being alone. And maybe I was sinning that day by not singing. But honestly, I think sinning is what saved my soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Ursa. I've actually heard it said that singing or giving praise is giving oxygen back to God. And it sounds like that was taken very seriously, a little too seriously, a little too literally. I think a lot of theologians would say that it is not on the 10 Commandments or anything like that. So interesting.
Correct.
Yes, legalism can take you to a very unfun place. One of the things I would like for you to just explain to our audience and give us a little bit of education about is, what is demisexual?
Yeah, so demisexual falls on the asexual spectrum. Demi people are not really able to just look at a person and be like, I find them attractive. I have never been able to be attracted to someone unless I've known them 6 months, a year. It doesn't even occur to me that they could be attractive.
That's interesting. Do you feel like there is much awareness. I've not heard very much about demisexual. I mean, I feel like in the community we've learned a lot and we've come a long way with understanding different sexualities. Do you feel like there could be more awareness and understanding about it?
I think absolutely. And I think it'll be a long time before there is full awareness because asexuality, demisexuality is rooted around a lack of something instead of a presence
Mm-hmm.
of something. And so it's hard to form a community around a lack of something. There are online forums for demisexuals, but there's not much for us to talk about because there's not much we're really fighting for.
I see. That's an interesting perspective on that. That's why it's so good to have these conversations and to just that we talk, and that's what I love about this show and this platform of what we do. I wanted to touch on something, and that is I interviewed another person on Solar Tail. Her name was Sasha Soroff, and she had a similar thing. She was a dancer and she had severe neuropathy in her feet and she couldn't dance for a long time. And I know with you got a fantastic, beautiful, beautiful voice. I hadn't heard you sing until just now. And with your storytelling, which kind of involves your voice as well, how did that go? Where, your disease and the illness that kind of took it from you?
Yeah, it did not have me in a great mental health space for a long time. But I was very privileged to be going through this at a time when I was in college, when I was surrounded by mentors.
Mhm.
And there were mentors who were willing to work with me that year to find a way to get back to singing healthily. And so we tried a lot of things and they took a lot of risks. And this is not medical advice. I don't fully know how this worked, but we did discover that if I was able to sing with what's called diaphragmatic vibrato, where I could interact the sound with my diaphragm and interrupt the airflow, I could avoid triggering an attack.
Interesting.
So eventually I was able to get back into it.
That makes me so happy to hear that you had people who are willing to work with you. There are so many talented people who just need mentors who are patient, who are creative. And one of the things, because at ANCAN we have art classes and we make them adaptable. So whatever, if you have a challenge, we'll figure out how to overcome it. And there's so many things that people can give the world if we were just patient and listened to people and helped with their weaknesses if we all just carried it together. So that just makes me so happy. Another question that I have for you, kind of going back with these two stories. So you're looking pretty good and stronger, and you've overcome a lot. You've just overcome a lot. What how do I put this? How did you find yourself again? How did you reclaim yourself again?
Yeah, so actually, after I did finally get a full cardiac ablation, um, I spent about a year needing to not do much. I think we don't talk enough about how long it takes to recover from
Yeah.
ablation fully. But when I was ready to like put myself back out there, I needed to find something that I could do that would re-strengthen me that wasn't just sitting at a gym doing something over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, I was working on my master's degree in storytelling at East Tennessee State, and there was a local circus school that had very affordable classes. So for Christmas that year, I asked just for money for circus classes, and I started taking aerial silks and aerial lyra. And it became an addiction for me. I actually ended up joining the performing troupe for that circus. And circus is kind of what saved me there because every day I was able to set a new goal. And if I didn't reach it, it was okay. There was a community of people like ready to support me. But I also had the added benefit of holding myself 40 feet above the ground and knowing I couldn't let go. Because if so, I would hurt myself. So it gave me the incentive to push myself further.
So what was it about the circus that inspired you? You're like, okay, I want to do that. That's a goal I want to do. I want to get into this.
Yeah. I had never developed upper body strength. And I thought, wow, that looks like a great way to develop upper body strength. And a friend I had performed with long ago in high school had joined had been a circus performer for a few years, and she talked to me about how much it had changed her life, and I was like, well, sure, why not?
So how many classes did you take? How long did that take?
Yeah, I started off with just 1 a week, eased into it. 1 a week turned into 3 a week, turned into 5 a week, turned into 8 a week. And yeah, by the time I was joining the performing wing of it, I was there every single day
You just
on top
encouraged
of
a
grad
lot.
school.
You encouraged a lot of people like myself who want to be an expert at the first class and doesn't like to transition or ease into something. So that makes me feel so good that you started with once a week and then you went all the way up. That's incredible. I would love to pivot a little bit and talk about your book. I read it today. I read the whole thing today. I loved it. As we were talking before the show, I've highlighted stuff. I actually believe that every adult in the world should have a copy. It is a great book. One of the things that I love about it, and you're going to talk about it a little bit, we as adults still need stories. We still need fables. We still need comforting, and we still need guidance. Doesn't matter what age you are. Would you please share a little bit about your book? And I just love it.
Yeah, so Passive Aggressive Fables for Adults is a collection of some of the most important life lessons I have learned through my 20s. Going through grad school, being a teacher at several universities, being an acting coach, there were times when I would get frustrated with people, as anyone does in any job. And those frustrations, I would have to turn back to myself and ask, why is this really frustrating me? And what do I need to learn myself so that I can handle this situation better? And once I distilled that lesson out of life, I was like, okay, how can I make better sense of this? And because I am a storyteller, because I enjoy stories, I turned every one of those lessons into a fable. Now, a fable is a story about animals doing animal things in which those animals learn lessons, and so too do we. So I set these fables in the Ozarks using animals and cryptids from the Ozarks, and I let them tell the stories for me in the most passive aggressive ways possible.
Yes, and part of the reason why I selected the stuffed animals that I had is I loved the raccoon story. So everyone go read the raccoon story. And the deer story was just incredible. All of them are. You did just a great way to do that. Like it was so great. And you also educated me about some of the cryptids and some of the spiritual aspects of the Ozarks, and it's a great read. And I think you wrote in the description that it's for any adult, and it truly is. Like if you're an adult and you've gone through a struggle, this book is for you. I have a question from you from the Q&A that I'd like to ask.
Okay.
And they say, thank you so much for sharing your story. Very inspiring. Did you ever feel alone as a young person with health issues? And if so, what alleviated that?
Yeah. There were a lot of times I definitely felt alone in the struggle, but I don't know that I felt fully alone on the whole because I did have very close friendships. I'm an extrovert. I draw a lot of my power in life just from being around good people. And so I was very fortunate to have friends that I could lean on. But there were times when what I was going through were things I couldn't really talk to people about. Whenever you have severely low blood pressure, and at the time I was also dealing with hypoglycemia, you actually do have hallucinations. And that is a scary thing to tell people when you are a teen because that comes burdened with a whole lot of other connotation. And you also do have semi-violent impulses that you don't actually feel compelled to act on, but you feel them in your body. I remember walking through the hallways at school and being so desperate to be able to feel a full emotion that I just had this impulse in my body to slam my wrist against the wall hard enough to break it so that I could cry because I had not cried in years. And I knew that wasn't okay. But I also didn't know how to express that to my counselors, to my friends, or anything because that sounds scarier than it is at the core. And it could red flag things that weren't going on. And I think that is something we need to talk about sometimes, is that the line between mental health and physical health can be blurred.
Yes.
And with young people, jumping to mental health as the assumption ignores a lot of the physical ailments underlying issues sometimes. In those moments, I definitely did feel alone, and that's where I had to turn to poetry and things that were more introspective. And really, I didn't deal with those things until I found more stability. I think finding a diagnosis, finding stability, that's how I got the ground to deal with those particular traumas.
So it sounds like the poetry and storytelling really anchored you.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. We were talking yesterday, and you told us one of your favorite Ozark animals. I don't think I'd heard of it. Would you share for the audience? Would you educate all of us what that animal is?
Absolutely. My favorite Ozark animal is the snot otter or the Ozark hellbender. It is a type of salamander that is native to the Ozarks, and they are in danger right now. So please fight to save the hellbender. They are these adorable salamanders that need to live in fast flowing water. And because we did build those dams on the rivers, a lot of their natural habitat is now gone. And these are very territorial creatures. Some of them live under the same rock their entire life. So when you disrupt their places, it's very bad for them. But there is currently a breeding program at the St. Louis Zoo that I am keeping an eye on because 2 of those snot otters in that breeding program are from my family's home county. And I'm really hoping that someday the snot otter can rise again.
Your passion about snot otters is just contagious. I dare everyone watching to hashtag save the snot otters.
Save the snot otters.
Save the snot otters because biodiversity is very, very important. I have a question, and that is sort of like, what's next for Ursa?
Yeah, so I've got a few shows upcoming. For those who are in Chicago in April, I am set to perform with Outspoken. I am also set to perform with Pour One Out. And then I am currently in the process of reviving a solo show I developed during my master's program called Bend Hill Phantasmagoria that actually builds on those stories I learned sitting at Marianne Messick's feet as a child. My friends and I would go to the playground and we would do our own versions of those stories. So this is what those stories have become after 25 years of filtering.
That is incredible. And also, you have a YouTube page where you have some of your other spoken words, your other storytelling, and you have a lot of great content on there. So if you're driving, you want to listen to something, just fantastic. I think the question that I would like to end on is, what would you tell? Well, I guess this is a two-part question. How would you tell young people, especially, how do you start with storytelling, especially if you have an illness and you need to be an advocate, if you need to tell your story in a doctor's office? What steps can you take to telling your story?
Yeah, I think the most important part of story is structure. Look for the structures of the stories that work around you. And in that, you will find your strength. Find someone who's advocating for themselves well. See how they're talking. Imitate them until you can improvise. Find the stories you're drawn to. See what makes them what they are and pull that into your own. Don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel every time.
That's fantastic advice, and I will file that away for myself. I guess this will be the final question is, what words of encouragement would you tell someone who is going through, a young person or someone who's going through health challenges like what we have at ANCAN? We do cancer and chronic illness. what words of encouragement would you have for them?
I would say it's okay to find your flow. When you find the thing that lets your mind be quiet and stop freaking out for a moment, it's okay to love that thing and partake in that thing without turning it into your career or your identity, to just make it a part of your day that gives you the sanity you need to get through.
I feel like as a society, we are so obsessed with money and jobs and hustling that we don't take time for these hobbies and nurturing ourselves. And that one of the things I heard someone said is you don't have to have a hobby that makes money. You can just have a hobby for yourself. And that's just fantastic. Ursa, you are a wonderful human. It has been incredible sharing the space with you. I feel like I've spent my day with you because I read your book, and guys, go pick up the book. It's on Amazon. You can get the ebook. I got the ebook because I couldn't wait. Go do that. Go to Ursa's YouTube page, and thank you so much, Ursa. So next month, we have a fantastic guest. It is Mark Kissen. He is a surgeon, a former surgeon, and he will be doing quite the performance. I also want to thank the Marsh Stream. Please support the Marsh, because the Earth Without Art is just and also it's so important that we have these platforms and have these conversations. Please support that. Please continue to support that. I want to give a big thank you to everyone. Please come visit us at ANCAN. We offer different support groups, art classes, and just like the Solo Arts Heal. It has been my pleasure to spend the evening with you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you, Ursa. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Please make sure to check out our website for more information on our upcoming shows for the rest of this week. Don't forget to donate to the tip jar, and we hope to see you next time. Have a good evening.
How do I describe my journey with me?
Your mother, who takes care of you, who takes you to the doctor when you're sick. Your mother.
Good morning, New York. Buenos dias. It's me. What's up?
We went out for lunch at a sushi place where she tried sushi for the first time and she liked it.
I see that change can happen. I know things can shift and change for good.
I am dizzily dazzled with stars in my eyes.
Same level as I broke my neck. But he's not getting the same return of function I am.
And I don't want any of your smart aleck sex talk that I usually get when I get.
This is beyond the Marsh, because what you're doing is planting beautiful seeds for artists to grow.